and welcome to the last talk of the afternoon in the Science Basement this December. Here I have Noemi Gutierrez Valdes, and she will be talking about how tobacco and other plants can be engineered for health. And she is a PhD candidate in plant sciences, so very different from my own studies. Yes. So as a small, short introduction to the Science Basement, we are a nonprofit, and we are all about early career researchers learning how to communicate science, make complex thought simple. We have these public speaking seminars, we do podcasts, we do blogging. Also, we do arts and science, we visit schools, anything that has to do with science and communication we do. On the right, you can find us on Facebook, where most of you probably came in through, because that's where the Zoom link was. But we also have a website, thesciencebasement.org. This is the team. There are quite many of us making this, specifically this public speaking seminar possible. And this is now the last talk, to my knowledge, as part of this year of research-based knowledge in collaboration with Academy of Finland, Ministry of Education and Culture, and the Federation of Finnish Learning Societies. And the whole point is just to make research more accessible. So taking, again, these complex thoughts and making them more simple. So without further ado, I would like to let Noemi start her presentation. And if you have any questions or you want to be one of our speakers in the spring, just contact us with afternoons@thesciencebasement.org. So I will stop sharing my slides and Noemi can start blowing us away.
Yay! Okay. Can you see my presentation now?
Yes.
Oh, not that one. Let me go back to the beginning. That would be great. Okay. So thank you very much, Rita, and also thank you to all members of the Science Basement for giving me the opportunity to talk about my research. And today I am talking about how tobacco and other plants can be engineered for health, specifically to produce specific pharmaceutical compounds. So I hope you enjoy my talk. But first, I will tell you a bit about me. I am Mexican and I have lived and studied in the Netherlands and currently in Finland, where I am a doctoral student in the plant sciences program in the Helsinki University. And also I do my research at VTT. During the day, I am a molecular farmer. So it's just a fancy term for using plants to produce specific compounds using plant biotechnology, which you will learn more about in a few moments. As part of my doctoral research from the University of Helsinki, I produce pharmaceuticals in plants, trying to make the pharmaceuticals and their processes in plants even better. So doing my research, I have worked in the Pharma Factory project, a multinational European project in which we try to optimize the processes of production of different medicines produced in plants. Besides doing research, I have many hobbies. I like traveling, running, singing, cooking food from all over the world, and doing science communication with my beloved the Science Basement organization. So yeah. Now yes, okay. So now I will tell you a story, and it's a story about my own 6-year-old self. And my history with plants goes back to those days when I played with my grandma's plants. making perfumes and magical potions. And my grandma really like reinforced my love and fascination for plants. From her, I learned the beauty of plants. And short after, like when reading my very first book of biology, where plants were like described in the like macroscopic and microscopic level, I was captivated even more by all the things that plants can do. But now I want to welcome you to my talk and tell you what you are going to learn today. You will learn, among those things you will learn how is it that plants can be modified so they produce specific medicines. How can we improve global health with the help of a global killer? Also, you will learn some examples of plant manufactured pharmaceuticals that can be used as diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines. And also, well, what is the future of plant-based medicines using genetic engineering technologies? So, but now first, I will explain to you two key concepts for understanding my talk. First is plant biotechnology, and is basically using plants and their biological processes to produce products or services. And now, and of course, we've used plants to make medicines, but now speaking about plant molecular farming is a little bit of a different thing. And now, what is plant molecular farming then? Well, then it's the production of pharmaceuticals or other compounds of interest using plant biotechnology or using genetic engineering techniques to do so. So basically what we are doing here is using those genetic engineering technologies to engineer plants, insert fragments of DNA to ask the plants to manufacture the medicines specifically that we want to. And again, this field is called plant molecular farming. And those scientists that are in this field, well, we consider this field as a great opportunity to make modern medicines economically and at a scale that is relevant for global health. But now, we use different pharmaceuticals that can be classified depending on their source. For example, there are synthetic compounds produced mainly like by chemical reactions. And there are also medicines that are called biopharmaceuticals, produced in animals, in plants, or in microorganisms. But then, what are the advantages of producing plant manufactured pharmaceuticals? Well, if we would, for instance, compare them with medicines produced in animal cells, we could say that plant-based compounds can be easily scaled up. For example, in greenhouses with cheaper infrastructure and production, in comparison to making animal cell-based pharmaceuticals that need like a really big factory with really expensive still bioreactors, for example. Another advantage of plant-based pharmaceuticals is that we can also custom some of the sugars that are attached to the pharmaceuticals that actually could make them more effective and better in vivo. And plants are really easy to customize for these sugars. So it could be that plant-based pharmaceuticals could be even like more effective than certain animal cell-based pharmaceuticals. Also, another big thing is that once we know how to produce a pharmaceutical in a plant, that you will learn how we do in a moment, we can actually set up that production in a greenhouse, basically in any country that actually needs that pharmaceutical. So in a sense, it could be like you are producing the pharmaceutical for the place that, in the place where it will be consumed. So that is great. And it also saves a lot of time and money and effort in trying to export or import medicines all over the world. And also about consumer preferences or patient preferences. There are some examples of plant-based, plant manufactured pharmaceuticals in which you can even have like kosher medicines. And then you not only have an effective medicine that actually works, but you are also consuming a medicine that is in accordance to your beliefs, because it's, for example, a kosher pharmaceutical. And well, now in terms of effectivity, what we want to develop is that we create plant manufactured pharmaceuticals that are as effective as their counterparts produced in animal cells. But as I have told you, sometimes they could even be better or even be safer for the patient, because in the process of making them, we don't use animal cells, which sometimes could be contaminated with viruses that could actually infect the human. So yeah, those are some of the advantages of plant manufactured pharmaceuticals. But now I would like you to go to this Menti, and could you please, Rita, put the link to the chat so they could actually go there. I will stop sharing this, and then I will share the actual question in Mentimeter. And because I really want to know what you know. So I will give, okay. Name medicines that you think are made with the use of plant biotechnology. Aspirin, penicillin, ibuprofen, burana, okay, passiflora, thyroxine, oxycodone.
I think this is it's a tough question. If you don't know the answer, it's fine to guess any medicine you know.
Yeah. Because I will actually tell you my point of actually asking this question. And is that in reality, many medicines that are being now developed through the use of plant biotechnology are not yet in the market. There are really few that are now in the market, like that example of the kosher enzyme that is produced in Israel, and that is having this kosher certification, and that is actually produced in carrot cells. But there are just few examples of medicines that are actually produced with plant biotechnology. But as I am watching here your responses, many of these actually, for example, aspirin is actually like extracted from plants, but is made not really using plant biotechnology, because they were not using like genetic engineering techniques to actually like tell the plant, oh, you should actually produce this compound for me. No, we just found it in nature and then we extract. But sometimes that extraction is not so effective or not in so big yields. So we have to have a lot of plant material to actually extract a good amount of aspirin, for example. And well, there are also some other compounds here that are also produced not, or that are extracted not from plants, but also produced in other microorganisms as well. So, but that was the main idea, that we are now developing medicines that will really soon be in the market. And I will tell you more examples of that in some minutes, but okay. So I will stop sharing this, and now I will go back to my presentation. But thank you very much for your input. Okay, so now we are going to talk about how plant manufactured pharmaceuticals are made in plants. But first of all, this is a plantation of tobacco, okay? And tobacco is considered by many as a really lethal plant. And you can see why, because at least 1 in 10 adults die because of smoking tobacco. So it's really like a plant, or well, the action of smoking the plant. It's actually so bad for health that people die. So, but how is it that we can turn this global killer into a global healer? And that is through the use of plant biotechnology. And we can turn this plant around and then use these tobacco plants to manufacture medicines. I will tell you how we do that. And then we could actually address some of those major global health issues that we fail to face in health around the world today. So now I will go a bit more into detail on how plant manufacture pharmaceuticals can be produced. So as I told you, we know a lot about plants, right? So we know to the microscopic level how all the machinery of the plant is actually producing compounds or proteins of interest. Many pharmaceuticals are actually proteins. And how proteins are made is that they are made in the inside of the cells, also for the case of animal cells as our own. But the idea is that for a protein to be produced, you need to give the plant a specific instructions of how that protein needs to be produced. So what we do, can you actually see my pointer?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what we actually see, or what we actually need to construct, is like that set of instructions for the plant, okay? For the production of that specific pharmaceutical. And then what we do is that we use genetic engineering techniques so that we have like all that like book of instructions for the production of the protein. And then we need a method of delivery of those instructions from the outside, where we assembled that book of instructions, to the actual plant or plant cell or plant tissue, okay? And what we use is a bacterium that was originally a bacterium that or bacteria that actually damaged plants, and it's Agrobacterium tumefaciens. And that plant was known, possibly by some gardeners in the audience, or well, by gardeners in general, that this bacteria was actually producing, infecting the plant and then producing tumors in the plants. It was like hijacking the mechanisms of the plant to produce all the compounds that the bacteria wanted or needed for survival. But now plant biotechnology is using that same bacteria, but now inserting that book of instructions to the bacteria, and then using that method of delivery to hijack the system of the plant, and then harness it to produce any kind of pharmaceutical that we want the plants to produce. Now, how is it that we actually deliver that bacteria to the plant? Well, it's basically, as I like to call, it's like as you were injecting the suspension of bacteria into the plant leaves, for example, or into the plant roots, and then putting it into contact with the plant tissue, and then letting it do its magic, and then hijacking the plant system, and then producing whatever we want them to produce. And then after that delivery of the bacteria with the instructions, then the plant will need an incubation time, and then it will produce the pharmaceutical that you want them to produce. And then what is it that we do afterwards? Well, after that incubation or cultivation of the plant or plant tissue, because we can use whole plants or also specific tissue of the plants, meaning, for example, leaves or roots, or even cell suspensions, so plant cell suspensions, to produce whatever we want. But then after they have produced, then we have to extract from that suspension, from that tissue, plant tissue culture, and then purify in a way that we have a protein or a pharmaceutical at the end that is of good quality, and that then is functional in the patient, or in the in the tissue culture that you are going to test your pharmaceutical. So that is more or less like really a really brief overview of how pharmaceuticals implants can be manufactured using genetic engineering techniques. Okay. Now I will tell you about some actual examples of plant manufactured pharmaceuticals. We can make vaccines, we can make hormones, we can make antibodies, etc. But first, I will tell you about 3 examples. And one of them is really exciting one because it's a COVID-19 vaccine. But let's go with the first example. And this is anti-HIV antibodies. So antibodies are also proteins. And I am sure you know a bit about antibodies, but they basically help the immunological system to actually get rid of any virus or any threat for the body before it damages it. So, and you know about HIV. So, for example, in this case, I will tell you about this project in which they were producing these anti-HIV antibodies in plants. And there was a really exciting application in which they were going to make a gel kind of formulation. And then they were trying to make that gel, and then, for example, that gel could be used in the vagina before intercourse, for example, and then those anti-HIV antibodies would, in a way, neutralize the virus if it was there, and then before the virus could actually go into the system of the person that was in contact with the virus. So that is a nice application about that. And now a second example, which I think is a really cool one, is that now a Canadian company called Medicago is now in really advanced in their phase trials, in their clinical trials, sorry, for the production of this virus-like particle, which is basically like they are producing virus-like particles, or like a virus that is really not a virus, but has like all the tags, all the characteristics on the outside. So then it can be administered to the patient, and then the patient can actually produce antibodies against that virus. And now, for example, I can show you here that this is actually how you can see this in an electronic microscope. And then this is like the actual coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, how it's the structure. And now if you compare it also with how you can produce that same kind of 3D structure in plants, which is this virus-like particle vaccine, you can see that it's really almost the same. And it actually has now succeeded in their phase 3 clinical trials, which means that it is now effective in at least more than 24,000 people. And now they are actually seeking the registration and the license to be used in US and in Canada, for example. But this is a vaccine that is totally like plant-based, and that doesn't require, for example, animal cell technologies. And as I told you, could even be good for people that is really having a lot of allergies to specific formulations of animal-based vaccines, for example. And now I will tell you the last example that I have here. And it's actually that besides using tobacco, which was the example of the first two examples, so that anti-HIV antibodies and also the COVID-19 vaccine, we can also use other kinds of plants. For example, turnip. We can use turnip. We can use that same mechanism of the bacteria that infects the turnip, and then it makes it produce whatever we want the plant to produce. And this example is about using, for example, only the roots, so a specific tissue of the turnip. So it can be culture in really big amounts. And then once it's like producing enough yields of the pharmaceutical, you can, as we have discussed at the beginning, just extract and purify from that same tissue. But here the example was like, it was an enzyme that is used in the treatment of specific diseases where the body doesn't normally produce enzymes that serve for, let's say, upcycling certain wastes that are waste from the cell. And then you can imagine if your body doesn't produce those enzymes, then you need enzymes from the outside. So your body actually works well. So that is my last example of plant manufacture pharmaceuticals. And now let's go to the take-home messages. Plants can be can be genetically harnessed. So they produce custom pharmaceuticals. Tobacco can be converted into like a mini factory for the production of molecules of interest, which redefines tobacco from a global killer to a global healer. And also pharmaceuticals such as diagnostics, therapeutics, and even vaccines can be produced in plants. And also in the near future, as I have told you with the case of the COVID-19 vaccine made in plants, we are going to see more plant manufacture or tobacco manufacture pharmaceuticals in the market soon. And then they will enter like competitively, and then there will be more options for patients that cannot take conventionally produced pharmaceuticals. So that is also good for the patient as well. Yeah. And now, well, I want to thank you all for your attention and your curiosity to listen to my talk, and I am open to your questions, and I am really excited about our discussion. Thank you very much.